9 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. It is September 3rd. Can you believe we're already into September? Wow.
Oh, that's ridiculous. A friend of mine shared on social media, we're in the Burr months. November, December, September.
Man, I'm so getting out of here once I reach that beautiful age that Tom here gets to go drive around in his RV and spend in San Diego.
See, for me,
beautiful.
Fall is fantastic. I love fall.
You and I can't even agree on that.
Oh, fall is wonderful. Here's the thing. I am convinced that the only reason we have a fondness for summer is because as kids, we got the time off. Because as a season, it sucks.
No,
hot,
it's
sweaty,
wonderful.
And all the
you actually
bugs
get
there,
to work
it's just,
done.
It's horrible.
Well, I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with
goes.
Bill Thorpe, delivering the sharpest news and fiercest debates from the right, left, and center. You can follow me on X at Jeff Hunt for the really unfiltered takes. So whether you're grabbing coffee in Arvada, driving through Lakewood, or kicking off your day in Thornton, we are here to spark real talk on the issues hitting the Denver metro area and all of Colorado. This is a red-hot story. The fatal police shooting of Rehan Montrell Lee Belt Steubenfield in Aurora that took place on August 30th. The Colorado Black Democratic Caucus, within a day of the shooting, and you may have seen the videos on this, rushed to call the shooting the killing of an unarmed black man, pushing a false narrative to smear our police officers. Here's the truth. Belt Steubenfield was armed, ignored a traffic stop for speeding, crashed into two cars, tossed the gun, aggressively charged at an officer, all while daring bystanders to pick up the weapon. Body cam footage and Chief Todd Chamberlain's briefing confirmed he raised his fist, taunted the officer, and kept advancing despite attempts to de-escalate. The officer, protecting himself and the public, had no choice. In 2024, Aurora's violent crime rate was 9.6 per 1,000 restaurants. And officers face split-second decisions in dangerous situations. From Denver to Colorado Springs, our law enforcement risk their lives to keep us safe, yet groups like this caucus jump in to paint them as villains without facts. This has nothing to do with race. It's all about actions. Belt Stubblefield's choices forced this outcome. It's not some woke conspiracy. And here in Colorado, from the Front Range to the Western Slopes, we back our police against these reckless narratives that are fueling division. The left's quick to cry foul, but their story fell apart. So, question to you, Coloradans. Are you standing with officers who protect our communities? Or are you buying the spin that this guy was killed because of his race and that he was an unarmed black man? Let's dive in. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Capitalist Law text line at 720-819-5115. Now it's time for News and Comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, News and Comment.
Good Wednesday morning. Going to be a beautiful day. 69 and sunny in Denver. Expect a high of 87 today. This portion of the news sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story. Okay, just in case you haven't brushed up on your Russian or Mandarin, hot mics right there. Pick up Putin telling Xi Jinping that organ transplants allow you to live 150 years or more. Xi says these days, 70 years old, you're still a child. Putin says biotechnology is continuously developing. Human organs can continuously be transplanted, and the longer you live, the younger you become. So the hot mic's picking that up today. And then G says, some predict that in this century, humans may live to 150 years old. So the dictators... No, right? Exactly. But these guys do, and you can understand why, as they try to hold on to power.
Yeah, do you remember Bill might know this, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle villain that was just a floating brain?
Yes, I forgot the name.
Kang. Yeah.
Kang? Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Kang. And he just had like robot bodies, just a floating brain. That's where we're all going to be.
That's right.
But I don't want
Again,
that. Oh, man.
Just point of reference here. I can't do long division, but I remember the stupid Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
I knew you would. I totally knew you would.
Just it shows the realm of worthlessness that I possess.
No. You are an encyclopedia of pop culture,
useless
and we love
knowledge.
it.
Absolutely useless knowledge.
But I mean, I'm 43, and I'm kind of like, well, it's getting kind of late here.
Right.
I might shuffle off this mortal coil, but 150.
Man,
no chance I want to go that long, man.
Man, that is a beat down right there. If you want to try to outdo God, I don't know, you would pay for it.
The thing for me is I always go back to Dennis Leary's bit, and it's several decades old, but he talks about the idea that when he's being a full-time smoker, that people will say that as a smoker you live shorter, and he's like, yeah, but they take those end of the year, the years the end of your life where you're in the wheelchair, someone's trying to feed you, you're wearing diapers. He's like, do I want those years? Are those the years I want more of? It's a question we got to ask here. If I could have more of the years in my 20s with the tight skin, all the hair, and the high metabolism, yay! But the idea on the end that we're extending this, is that what I'm looking forward to now?
It's so true.
Yeah.
God knows what he's doing, doesn't he? I mean, he really does.
Yes.
I mean, because you're like, really, you want those years? Yeah, I'm right there with you. Speaking of dictators, Nicolas Maduro, Venezuela.
Trump, you have to be careful because Marco Rubio wants you to stain your hands with blood, with a terrible war against South America and the Caribbean, because this would be all-out war in the continent.
Yeah.
Blaming Marco Rubio.
Right.
What is? I mean, here's what I think happened.
Rubio.
Somebody in his little advisory council, Maduro's, was like, at one time they got quite angry at each other during the debate. See if you can exploit Donald Trump calling him Little Hands Marco and Great Division. And the rest of us are like, dude, we've all moved past that.
Absolutely. And they also know the Cuban connection. They know he's Cuban, so they're trying to exploit that as well. There is no doubt about that. U.S. struck a cartel cocaine speedboat, as Jeff and Billy were talking about last hour, headed to the States, killed 11 TDA narco terrorists, and sent a message to the cartel, i.e. government, in Venezuela.
This one, to me, seems to be a slam dunk for the president. And I should tell you, I am absolutely opposed to this decision. I think the president is wrong to move it to Alabama, but he gets to make that call as the commander-in-chief.
The great George Brockler on the show this morning, DJT, moving U.S. Space Command from the Springs to Huntsville, Alabama. 47 says Colorado's laws on voting by mail was a factor in his decision. And D.A. Brockler says, that may hurt 47, as Phil Weiser says.
And so the only grounds I can see, and I'm no genius in this area, is the Administrative Procedures Act, the APA. And what that means is Phil has to argue that Trump's decision was arbitrary and capricious. That's tough because he'd made the decision in 21. Biden waited 2 years to reverse it, and now within the first 9 months of the Trump administration, first 8 months, he reverses it back. When Trump links that decision to something completely unrelated to national security, and that is, by the way, Colorado has mail-in ballots, he invites the argument that this decision was arbitrary and capricious and untethered to rational basis. That's the one thing it seems to me that Phil could argue now.
Good point. Stand by. Aurora Police Chief Todd Chamberlain says the suspect refused to obey commands and tossed away a gun before he was shot and killed by an officer on Saturday.
It appears the officer believed he faced an imminent threat of death or serious injury, and he acted.
37-year-old Rajon Belt Stubblefield allegedly refused orders to stay in his vehicle, encouraged bystanders to pick up his discarded gun while moving toward the officer. Chamberlain said the officer struck Belt Stubblefield in an attempt to de-escalate the confrontation, then shot the suspect as he kept moving forward. The chief promised to publicly release body cam footage of the shooting once his family has a chance to view it. Dozens of Epstein sexual abuse victims are expected to rally in D.C. today as the first batch of documents related to the late sex offender is being released. Tennessee's Tim Burchett heard from some of the victims on Tuesday, and this morning he told Benny Johnson a lot of them do not want the files out there, or at least all the files. As you can understand, they are victims of horrible crimes.
And that bothers me. So I'm glad we're going about it. I'm glad Chairman Comer's going about the way he's doing it by having the files, gone over before we do that, because there is that's a real issue. You got nearly 1,000. There were little girls, now they're women that are in those files that were abused by those dirtbags. So I would hope that we could remember that.
Yeah, no doubt.
That release was a little odd yesterday.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I read some of it. It was odd. I agree. I think the whole thing is
everything's put in random folders, and the folders aren't labeled really all that clearly. Mm-hmm. And then they're listed as images when they're PDFs, so you can't really search them.
Right.
It makes
it's all over the place.
Yeah,
it really is.
It's going to take somebody downloading it, running it through AI programs to figure out what's going on. It was a lot.
Yeah, it was messy. You're right. I agree with you. All right, we kick off the NFL season tomorrow night. Cowboys, Eagles, NFC East. And Dallas will try to win. Can they win without Micah Parsons? The Broncos, they prepare. They continue to prepare today for Sunday's game. 2:05 kickoff against the Tennessee Titans. College football, Delaware, the Fighting Blue Hens. And we know who went to college there. That'd be Joe Biden. At Folsom, Saturday to take on the Buffs at 1:30. CSU plays host to UNC. Wyoming takes on Northern Iowa in Laramie. 67 in Broomfield, 68 in Lone Tree, 69 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Mostly sunny to partly sunny and very pleasant here in Denver and along the Front Range today, tomorrow, and Thursday. As nice September weather will dominate. Highs will be 80s, overnight lows will be 50s. For Friday and the weekend, a little bit cooler, 70s to near 80 or so, and we'll see some better chances of afternoon and evening thunderstorms. Weather is a service of L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. For quick, trustworthy, and dependable service, call L&L Heating and Air Conditioning at 720-851-1691. Visit them online at bestdenverhvac.com. You'll be comfortable with L&L. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, so you may have seen the social media posts of a tragic shooting that took place in Aurora. Hate to see police officers have to use force, and if police officers are using force illegally, then they should be held accountable. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. What I don't like is this jumping to racial conclusions before the evidence comes out, and that's what the Colorado Black Democratic Caucus did. So, the shooting of a man, last name Belt Stubblefield, took place on August 30th. On August 31st, the next day, here's the statement from the Colorado Black Democratic Legislative Caucus regarding the Aurora police shooting of Rayhan Belt Stubblefield. The Colorado Black Democratic Legislative Caucus is deeply saddened and outraged by the fatal police shooting of an unarmed black man by the Aurora Police Department. It's the first time they use that phrase, okay? Unarmed black man. Yet again, our community is forced to grieve the loss of a life cut short under circumstances that raise profound concerns about policing practices, accountability, and justice in our state. And listen to this. This tragedy is not an isolated incident and is part of a broader and deeply troubling pattern of excessive force and racially disparate policing that continues to erode trust between law enforcement and the communities they serve. Just a reminder, this is 24 hours after that shooting takes place, okay? They have claimed, not, hey, let's go have an investigation. We want to get some clarity on this. My goodness, that was a terrible video that we saw. What is going on? No. This tragedy is not an isolated incident and is part of a broader and deeply troubling pattern of excessive force and racially disparate policing that continues to erode trust between law enforcement and the communities they serve. Aurora, in particular, remains under a consent decree following the killing of Elijah McClain, yet black residents continue to face disproportionate harm and loss of life at the hands of the Aurora Police Department. We stand united in demanding full transparency, no problem with that, from the Aurora Police Department, and the immediate release of all relevant information, including body-worn camera footage and other video evidence. Okay, so they want transparency. But remember, they've already said that this was the shooting of an unarmed black man and that this is not an isolated incident, but a broader pattern of racially disparate policing. Okay? But then, by the way, release all the information. The community deserves timely, factual answers to critical questions. Why was this stop initiated? Were proper protocols followed? The immediate threat, if any, justified the use of deadly force? And most importantly, why did this encounter result in the death of an unarmed black man? Twice in that statement. Not a questioning, but the statement of fact by the Colorado Black Democratic Legislative Caucus that Rayhan Belt Stubblefield was an unarmed black man killed by the Aurora Police Department. Here's the headline out of the Denver Post yesterday. Man killed by Aurora police was armed. Tossed gun before confrontation, chief says. A 37-year-old black man shot and killed by Aurora police officer after an attempted traffic stop and crash Saturday was armed and threw a gun into the grass before confronting the officer, Chief Todd Chamberlain said. Rayhan Belt Stubblefield crashed into two vehicles while fleeing an Aurora police officer who was trying to pull him over for speeding and a possible DUI, Chamberlain said at a news conference. Chamberlain declined to name the officer who shot Belt Stubblefield, citing the fact that the officer has not yet been interviewed by the 18th Judicial District critical incident investigators and that threats were made against the officer and his family. Thank you. Thank you for that. This police officer has had threats made against him and his family. Aurora police officials have not released body camera video of the shooting because it has not been viewed by Belt Stubblefield's family. But Chamberlain said he intends to release the full video once that happens. But Chamberlain did share still images from the video, one of which showed the officer pointing his gun at Belt Stubblefield as he stood near a damaged vehicle. The encounter happened over the course of 3 minutes from when the officer, the Aurora officer, clocked Belt Stubblefield with a speed radar and tried to pull him over near East 6th Avenue and Sable Boulevard at 7:29 p.m. Belt Stubblefield did not pull over when the officer turned on his lights and sirens, instead trying to evade the stop before rear-ending another vehicle, crossing over the median, and hitting a second vehicle. Belt Stubblefield did not follow the officer's orders to stay in his vehicle and show his hands, Chamberlain said. Instead, he got out of his car, tossed a handgun as he walked towards the sidewalk, and started walking towards the officer. He told bystanders repeatedly to get that expletive or pick up the gun while moving towards the officer, Chamberlain said. The officer tried to punch Belt Stubblefield in an attempt to de-escalate the situation, at which point Belt Stubblefield raised his fist and repeatedly asked the officer if he was ready for this, Chamberlain said. The officer shot Belt Stubblefield as he continued to move towards him, Chamberlain said. He died at the scene. Now, look, you can question whether or not the police officer acted appropriately. Maybe could he have pulled a taser? Sure. We can explore those questions. But it is wholly inappropriate for the Colorado Black Democratic Legislative Caucus to make claims, number one, that this was an unarmed black man. Okay? And you could say, well, he tossed the gun. Okay, well, is the police officer supposed to know that that's the only gun that he has? Plus, he's calling for people to pick up the gun. And I think it's perfectly reasonable to consider that there might be more weapons on him. So to say that, one, he's an unarmed black man is inappropriate. But two, to say that this is part of a broader, deeply troubling pattern of excessive force and racially disparate policing is inappropriate as well. There's no evidence that this guy was targeted because he was black, that the Aurora Police Department's being racist, that they used excessive force because Belt Stubblefield was racist. There's no evidence of that. And now you have the police officer and his family facing threats because of some of this being spun up by these progressive activists that constantly see policing as racist, as police being the bad guys, and we need to hold them accountable. Now, Do Better Denver did dive into the background of Rayhan Belt Stubblefield. I'm not saying he deserved to be shot and killed because of his background, but they posted a 12-page rap sheet that includes simple assault, domestic violence, assault and battery, more domestic violence, a failure to appear, battery, more domestic violence, assault, battery, domestic violence, damage of property, assault and battery, forgery, identity theft, lots of versions of that, by the way, more forgery. I'm just going through the pages. We're only at page 5 of 12. Assault, damage to property, child abuse. These are all charges he was brought up on at certain points. Now, can't say he was convicted on these, but this is his rap sheet of charges. Assault, child abuse, contempt of court, failure to appear, family offense, domestic violence, assault, driving under the influence, felony, aggravated assault. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 charges of felony aggravated assault. Domestic violence, assault, This is this guy's rap sheet. 12 pages long. Okay? So, again, I'm not giving a blanket clearance of what Aurora PD did. But keep in mind what I just read to you when the Colorado Black Democratic Legislative Caucus, the day after, claims that this was an unarmed black man and that this was a pattern of racially disparate policing that continues to erode the trust between law enforcement and the communities they serve. And this has pushed other people to make comments online about this, okay? In the 72 hours since Rayhan Belt Stubblefield was slaughtered by Aurora police officers in what can only be described as a modern-day lynching. That's what liberals on X and Facebook are saying about what happened. Rayhan Belt was killed by an Aurora police officer during a traffic stop. He was unarmed, and he was struck first. He stood defensively, but he did not attack, and yet he was shot and killed in front of his children. That is what progressives are doing. It continues to drive this anti-police narratives. It's got to stop, and Democrat leaders need to lead in stopping this. Bill, your thoughts?
There are a lot. One, at the 10,000-foot view, this is a great example of, again, us politicizing an act of violence. And there are degrees to that, because while we've seen the Democrats and liberals in some cases bend over backwards to say that this man was not responsible and should have been innocent and was mistreated, on the other side, we have a whole bunch of people that celebrated the charging of a guy in D.C. for throwing a sandwich at law enforcement, and that was felony assault. Now, the grand jury indictment failed. They couldn't make the charge stick. But again, we had on the other side, throwing a sandwich was a felony assault on law enforcement. So I believe both sides play politics with incidents like this. And on a personal point, that's a 10,000-foot view. On a personal point, the part that made me the most offended in the statement from the black lawmakers was the use of Elijah McClain's name. That pisses me off in this.
Interesting.
In
Tell
a
me
way,
why.
yeah. And this is a way that people are going to be surprised, but not surprised if you know me. If you know what happened to Elijah within 60 seconds. Ugh. I'm trying not to start yelling right now. They had their hands on him within 60 seconds. He had no weapon. They didn't search him. He wasn't alleged to have a weapon. The only reason they stopped him was because an older man in the neighborhood mentioned there was a black kid waving his arms down the street as he was walking, and that made him uncomfortable. Because of that, the officers within 60 seconds got kinetic, and within a minute and a half had him in a chokehold. Seriously? Over a report of a kid walking down the street waving his hands. So the fact that the lawmakers invoke his name in this, how dare you? How dare you bring him into this? Ugh, man, this makes me mad. Okay, now, back onto this. I believe that the statement that he was unarmed at the time of the shooting is correct, but the statement that he was unarmed is incorrect. This is a situation where those that are trying to make this into more than it is are splitting hairs. And believe me, I do it myself. So I recognize it, and I understand what they're doing. At the time, was he armed? No. But that doesn't mean that he did not have a firearm, nor was he making statements about not making statements about the intent to use the firearm. The information we have so far, until proven incorrect, was that he was advocating for other people around the area to either hand him the firearm or to use it. So, again, they're splitting hairs on that one. Here's the part for me. For me, the gun, in large portions of this, ends up being irrelevant. And this is going to surprise some people. Here's the reason that I believe that this is going to be and should be a justified shooting. Because he was advancing on the officer. And I go back to my friend Reggie Rivers, and his dad talks about when you're stopped by the police, that man with the badge and the gun is the law. It doesn't matter what the legislature has passed. It doesn't matter what you think it is. It doesn't matter if you have a law degree. At that instant, that man is the law. And whether or not you agree or disagree with what he was saying, that's the problem. Now, do I believe in the Elijah McClain case, despite what was shown in court, that they overstepped? Absolutely. And I believe he got a second bite at the apple, and Phil Weiser put a better set of prosecutors on that case rather than going out of state. You might have had something. But I got a whole lot of issues about how that case was prosecuted. But in this, he has been given commands, and the thing for me is he is advancing towards the officer. In other cases where I believe we've seen police violence, that I think accurately some Democrats and liberals have pointed out, the individual was not advancing or trying to assault an officer in which they were either shot or injured. That is excessive. However, I watched a video from across the street, and I saw him on 3 occasions take steps towards the officer. On 3 occasions, I saw the officer step back in order to maintain a safe distance. The question I have is, what did the guy expect? What was he looking for in that interaction when he gets out of the car and starts advancing on the officer? I can see getting out of the car because it's crashed or getting your wallet out, whatever it is. But as soon as you start advancing on the officer, despite their commands, now, to me, your intent is a confrontation. And there are going to be good choices and bad choices. Did this necessarily need to be a shooting? I don't know. The other question I have in this is why the officer punched the man. And that is a de-escalation. I have a question about that because I am not, nor will I ever be, a trained police officer. But in my average Joe life, punching someone very rarely de-escalates the situation. Rarely is that the choice. However, given that he was advancing on him, I don't know.
Well, it's a different option than shooting somebody.
It is.
Right?
And so if he's using something, and it may be a different option than a taser. He may not have had a taser, may not have been ready. I don't know. But the idea of a punch being a step towards de-escalation, I'm not saying it isn't. I just have a hard time, just based on the statement, getting there. But regardless of whether or not he had a gun in the car, threw it on the ground, or anything else, for me, the fulcrum of this tragedy is the driver continued to advance at the officer. I have a hard time holding the officer responsible when that's the case. Guess what Elijah McClain didn't do? Advance the officers. He never went at them like that. That's why it's different for me.
The Colorado Black Democratic Legislative Caucus is unfairly racializing an incident to turn people against law enforcement and have directly threatened the lives of this law enforcement officer and his family. They should be ashamed of themselves. They have no evidence. And in fact, the evidence points to today that they were wrong in their statements. They should apologize. They should be held accountable for this. This is not the way we treat our law enforcement. You want to investigate? You believe there are concerns? I have no problem with that. But the day after this shooting took place, you're claiming that this guy was unarmed and that this is a result of a racially disparate policing effort? You have no evidence of that, and you're directly threatening the lives of law enforcement officers out there by making this thing racial when there's no clear evidence that there was. It's terrible. They should be ashamed of themselves. And I'm tired. I'm tired of Democrats treating law enforcement like this. All right. Feel free to join the conversation, 303-696-1971, or texting us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. All right. Let's talk Black Eyed Pea of Colorado. Locally owned and operated by Steve and Michelle. I love this restaurant. My whole family does, with 8 locations. There's sure to be one near you. It's Colorado cookout and barbecue time at the Black Eyed Pea. Their August menu, well, their September menu. I've got the wrong read here. Let me get that better. August has passed, and they've moved on to different menus. My apologies. So if you go to online to blackeyedpeacolorado.com, you can check out their featured menu that they run throughout the different seasons of Colorado. They have a special barbecue menu, they have burgers, they have potato menus, and more. They've built a reputation in Colorado for the best home-cooked meal away from home. They also do catering. If it's a dinner party, rehearsal dinner, wedding reception, or company event, make it a success with Black Eyed Pea Catering, and no matter what the occasion, Black Eyed Pea gift cards are always great. For your special someone, birthday favors, or holiday presents, they've got you covered. I love everything about this restaurant. I know you will too. Support local. Keep it in Colorado. Get Maha. Way good, healthy food. Much better than what you're going to get fast food. Go visit the Black Eyed Pea near you. All right, we'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We are talking the unfortunate shooting that took place of a man here in Aurora over this past weekend. The Colorado Black Democratic Caucus claimed it was an unarmed black man that was shot by police, and that this is part of a consistent, broader, deeply troubling pattern of racially disparate policing. And the Denver Post yesterday headline, "Man killed by Aurora police was armed. Toss gun before confrontation," chief says. My frustration with this is this continued politicized effort by the left to try to make our law enforcement look racist. They're not. They're trying to keep our communities safe, and I'm tired of the disparagement that takes place here.
And for me, this is an example of them crying wolf, where what happens then is those real cases, like where you have an actual wolf, like Elijah McClain, those cries are ignored because of cries like these. If everything is an act of racial injustice by the police, none of them can be. They need to pick and choose. This is the wrong hill. This is the wrong fight. This doesn't hold up based on the critique of everything else we have seen. It's not even the same. And the black Democrats in Colorado and liberals that are defending the guy that was shot and saying this was and we'll use this from last hour, an extrajudicial killing. Those people that are doing that, you're wrong.
Yeah.
You're wrong on a number of levels, and you're hurting the cause you claim to support. You're doing more harm than good because you're eroding basic support.
Let's go to the phone lines. Aaron, Denver. Good morning, Aaron. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Well, good morning there, gentlemen. De-escalation goes both ways. From looking at the video at the local news or YouTube, the police officer definitely was doing his job, but the perpetrator, the offender, who happened to be black, didn't take the orders of the police officer seriously. You're advancing toward him. I'm sure the police officer say, "Hey, get down. You're under arrest. Get down." He wasn't following the police officer's orders. I mean, like you said, he has a badge. He is the law. Whether agree with it, disagree. If he wants you to get down, get down. It shouldn't have got to this point, but in my opinion, it looks like it was suicide by a cop. Jeff, you read his long list of criminal offenses, and as a result, I think this was just suicide by a cop. It's like bringing a knife to a gunfight. Well, the person who obviously has the gun, you got a knife, he's got the gun. Well, more likely you're going to end up dead, even if you have a knife in your hand. So, I mean, when it's all said and done, this will be a justified shooting. It's not because of the color of his skin. It's that the black person didn't obey the officer's orders to get down, and it didn't have to come down in this. Period. It just didn't have to come down to this, whether he used a taser or didn't use a taser or anything. It was all preventable by just respecting the police officer. Police are 99.9% of people are good, decent, hard-working people trying to do a very, very difficult job. These are split-second decisions. You don't have no time to really think about it, but from what I did, he handled it the right way, and the Black Democratic Caucus is just another form of defunding the police. This is just another propaganda. We must defund the police in this country.
Hey, Aaron,
and that is just nuts. It's nuts.
I love the fact that you're using the phrase defund the police, because I believe that phrase did more harm than good, to the claim about potential police violence. I think that really hurt it, and I appreciate the fact that you're using this as a model, saying that the Black Democrats are just as out of bounds as when we were claiming to defund the police. Now, one of the things they're saying, he was unarmed and that it was the officer that had the power in the situation. But I want to walk through something that I talk to my kids about with you. I always talk about what is the expectation of the interaction. Whether you're walking up to talk to somebody behind a counter, whether you're meeting them on the street, or whatever it is, what is your expectation out of the encounter you're about to have? And when the guy got out of a car, the driver, after crashing, and had a gun, threw it away, is advancing towards the police officer while also asking for bystanders to either pick up the discarded firearm and hand it to him or use it themselves on the officer. What's the expectation of the interaction? I think that we can ask ourselves, what is the driver in that situation? What are their expectations? And I cannot come to any conclusion other than violence on the officer. I can't come to a single other conclusion based on the actions of the driver. And at that point, sorry, in some cases, it's going to result in a shooting, as difficult as that is. Your thoughts, Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with that, Bill. And like I said, I sound like a broken record. I mean, de-escalation, it goes both ways. I mean, the police officer, he's obviously he's got a gun on you, right? He's got a gun on me. Well, okay, I'm a de-escalate this. I'm getting on the floor, doing what the police officer tells me to do. I want you on the floor now. Oh, poop! I'm on the floor.
Yeah.
Because he has the gun, and that gun has bullets in it. So I mean, de-escalation goes both ways. It's not we're just going to put it on the police officer de-escalate. No, you moron, you idiot, you got to de-escalate it too. If that police officer wants you on the ground now, you do it now, and you obey his orders. Now, if you got a problem with it, you can hire a lawyer like Johnny Cochran.
There you go, Aaron.
Aaron, run out of time. Gotta let you go. Thank
You're
you,
listening to Jeff and Bill.
This is